Here's a question that sounds simple until you actually try to answer it. Think about how many birds you've seen in your life. Thousands, probably. Maybe tens of thousands if you spend any time outdoors. They're everywhere, on power lines, in trees, hopping across parking lots, sitting at traffic lights like they own the place. Now think about how many dead birds you've seen. Not roadkill, not a window collision you witnessed happen, just a bird lying in the grass, still, gone. If you're like most people, the number you just thought of is surprisingly small. Maybe single digits, maybe zero. And the moment you notice that gap, the gap between how many birds must be dying every single day and how few bodies you ever actually find, the world gets a little stranger. Because something is happening out there that you've been too busy to notice your entire life. Today, we're going to figure out exactly what that something is. Let's start with math, because the math is what makes this genuinely unsettling. North America has somewhere around 7 to 8 billion wild birds at any given moment. That number stays roughly stable year over year, which means births and deaths are roughly balanced. And the death side of that balance is enormous. Ornithologists estimate that for common songbirds, your sparrows, warblers, finches, the annual mortality rate sits between 40 and 60%. More than half of all small birds alive right now will be dead within 12 months. Do the math on that. If there are 7 billion birds and half of them die each year, we're talking about roughly 3 to 4 billion deaths per year in North America alone. That's over 8 million birds dying every single day. If even a fraction of those bodies stayed visible for 24 hours, dead birds would be a normal, everyday sight. You'd see them the way you see leaves on the ground in autumn, constantly, unavoidably, but you don't. Which means something, several somethings actually, are removing the evidence at a rate that keeps pace with 8 million deaths a day. Let's talk about what those somethings are. The first thing to understand is that most birds aren't dying in places you'd ever see them. When a bird gets sick, whether from disease, injury, or just the slow decline of old age, its behavior shifts in a very specific, very predictable way. It stops doing the things healthy birds do. It stops foraging aggressively, stops defending territory, stops calling, and it moves toward cover, dense cover, thick underbrush, the interior of a shrub, the base of a hedgerow buried in weeds, tall grass, ivy climbing a fence. This isn't random. A sick or weakened bird is a bird that can't fly well, can't react fast, can't escape a predator. Every instinct it has says, hide. Get into the most concealed space available. Don't be seen. So it hides, and it dies there, in the one place you'll never casually glance into. Think about every overgrown shrub in your neighborhood, every patch of thick grass along a fence, every tangle of ivy on a wall. Underneath all of that, in the dark and the dense, birds are dying. They've been dying there for as long as birds and shrubs have existed together. You walk past those spots every day. You've never pushed the branches aside and looked. Almost no one does. That's not morbid. That's just how concealed these deaths are. The dying bird finds the most hidden place it can reach, and that instinct, which evolved to protect it from predators in its final vulnerable hours, also perfectly hides its body from human eyes. But concealment only explains part of the absence, because even birds that do die in the open, on a lawn, on a driveway, on a park path, don't stay there long. Researchers who study bird mortality in urban and suburban areas discovered something that changes the way you think about the world you live in. When a small bird dies in the open, the average time before that body disappears completely, not decays, disappears, is somewhere between 30 minutes and 4 hours, half an hour, in a residential neighborhood in broad daylight. The reason is a scavenger network that most people never think about, because most people don't think of these animals as scavengers at all. Insects are first. In warm weather, flies locate a carcass within minutes. Ants follow. Beetles. Under the right conditions, insect activity alone can strip a small bird to bones in a matter of hours. But insects are slow compared to what comes next. Cats are one of the most efficient removers of bird carcasses in suburban areas. Most people know that cats kill birds. Studies estimate free-roaming domestic cats kill over 1 billion birds in the U.S. annually. But cats also scavenge. A dead bird on the ground is an easy, effortless meal. Cats patrol their territories regularly, often at night. A bird dies at 2 a.m. on your lawn. A cat finds it by 3 a.m. You wake up at 7 a.m. There's nothing there. You never knew any of it happened. Raccoons, opossums, foxes, and skunks, all common in suburban and even urban areas, will take bird carcasses at any stage of decomposition. Crows and ravens, which are essentially flying opportunists with excellent memories and territorial awareness, will spot and collect a dead bird faster than most people realize. Even squirrels, in lean months, will strip protein from a bird carcass. The collective speed of this network is what researchers find remarkable. They've had to design studies around it, checking sites multiple times per day, sometimes every hour, just to document deaths before the evidence is gone. The scavenger system doesn't wait. It's always running, always hungry, always faster than you'd expect. There's a third category that's easy to overlook: predation. A significant portion of birds don't die and leave a body. They get taken in flight or from a perch, or in the night from a roosting spot, and consumed elsewhere. The predator does the work of body removal as part of the kill itself. A sharp-shinned hawk intercepts a chickadee mid-flight. The hawk carries the chickadee to a perch in a tree you can't see into, eats it, and drops feathers and bone fragments in a pile beneath that tree. You never see the chickadee again. What's left isn't recognizable as a bird. An owl takes a sparrow from a branch at midnight. The kill is silent, the consumption is private, and hours later, the owl pellet lands on the ground, somewhere in its territory. Walk past it and you'll see a gray oval lump in the grass. You won't stop. You won't know. A cat, again, takes a bird it didn't kill, or one it did. Either way, it carries it somewhere private. The death happened. The evidence is distributed across different locations, unrecognizable in form, cleaned up by the very nature of how predators feed.
Now we get to the part of this that researchers are still trying to figure out. For most of the history of ornithology, the assumption was simple: birds don't have a concept of death. They lack the cognitive complexity. A dead bird to another bird is just an object. Maybe a threat signal, maybe nothing at all. That assumption held until researchers started paying closer attention to corvids, crows, ravens, jays, magpies. And what they found didn't fit the assumption. A 2015 study from the University of Washington documented what happens when crows encounter a dead crow. They gather. Not one or two curious birds, sometimes dozens. They land near the body, call loudly, circle it, and remain at the scene for extended periods. Sometimes 20 minutes. Sometimes longer. This behavior is now sometimes called a crow funeral, though researchers are careful with that word. What's not in question is that it's consistent. It happens across different crow populations. It's not random. It's a specific response to a specific trigger, a dead member of their species. And here's the part that goes beyond just gathering. After these events, the crows don't return to that location in the way they normally would, even if it's in their home territory, even if food is available there. The location of a crow death becomes a place they avoid. They learned something from the encounter. Their understanding of that space changed because of what they witnessed. Is that grief? Is that a concept of mortality? Researchers won't go that far. But it is recognition. It is behavioral change triggered by death. That is not nothing. Magpies have been observed placing grass near the bodies of dead magpies, a behavior with no clear survival explanation that looks, to human eyes, uncomfortably like a burial gesture. Western scrub jays change their behavior when they encounter a dead jay nearby, halting food caching activities, increasing alarm calls, communicating the event to other jays in the area. For most small songbirds, the evidence is thinner. There are reports, from birdwatchers, from wildlife rehabilitators, of living birds remaining near dead mates for extended periods. Returning. Calling. But these are difficult to study systematically, and the behaviors have other possible explanations. What we can say is this: some birds, particularly the most cognitively complex ones, don't treat death as invisible. They treat it as significant. They respond to it in ways that are coordinated and remembered. Whether that constitutes awareness of death in any philosophical sense is a question science hasn't fully answered, and may not answer for a long time. So here's where we land. The reason you almost never see dead birds is not a mystery in the supernatural sense. It's a mystery in the ecological sense, explained by overlapping systems that each independently make bird deaths less visible and together make them nearly invisible. Dying birds hide. Not because they plan to, but because every bird that survived long enough to pass on its genes was the bird that hid when it was vulnerable. That instinct is in every bird alive today. Scavengers remove what's left. Faster than you'd expect, at times when you're not watching, in ways you're not thinking about. And predators consume birds before bodies can form at all, distributing what's left across distances and in forms you wouldn't recognize. The birds are dying. Millions of them, every single day, all around you, in the world you walk through without noticing. The ecology of death is just extraordinarily good at cleaning up after itself. But somewhere in the underbrush at the edge of your yard, or under that overgrown shrub by the back fence, there are birds spending their final hours in the only safe place they know how to find. And somewhere, in a tree you can't see into from the sidewalk, a crow is calling out in a way that scientists are still trying to fully understand. The world is full of things happening just outside the range of your attention. That's what makes it worth paying attention.